bit of an idea of where everyone's up to. Excuse me, just flicking between screens here. All right, so we're now live. So welcome anyone who's watching this remotely. And we have a whole bunch of Toastmasters here from districts around the world. I'm Kathleen. I'm from districts 70 and 90 in New South Wales, Australia. Mostly in District 70, but the Meetup project that I'm involved with looks across both of those districts. And I'll be talking through what we've done today for everyone's benefit. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I might assign people so that we don't all say it at once. So Janice, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Janice Howard. I am the Public Relations Manager from District 60 and the incoming Club Growth Director. And District 60 serves Toronto, Ontario, and Eastern Ontario.
Yep, and are you guys currently doing anything with Meetup?
The clubs, individual clubs are, but not the district.
Okay.
The clubs have asked us to look into a district program that...
Yeah, excellent, thanks. So Kyle?
Okay, so I'm Kyle Hall. I'm currently Division B Director, and I'm the Club Growth Director-elect for District 32. That puts us in Washington State, west of the Cascade Mountains and south of Seattle. And we have a few clubs that are using Meetup individually, but nothing at the district level, nothing coordinated.
Yep, excellent. And your role, did you say that?
My role? I'm in the incoming Club Growth Director.
Okay, fantastic. Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I was recently in Australia and I met a number of your clubs and I attended your District 90 convention. It was there that I heard that you were doing fantastic things and Phil gave me your name. So I was passed on by Phil. I'm currently the Division A Director and we're having a meeting tonight and one of the things we're discussing is the use of Meetup. One of the things they're proposing is that areas would get a Meetup account so an area director could use it for 3 clubs. But I thought I'd see what you were doing at the district level, and I really appreciate your putting this together on so early in your day.
No worries. So for those of you who don't know, this is 6 a.m. my time. So that's Linda's reference. Thanks very much, Linda. And, have we lost you, Mark?
Oh, I think the camera's just died. Okay. I've not used it for a while, but I'm still on the air. So, Mark Snow, incoming Metropolitan Division Director for District 69, which of course covers Queensland, Northern Territory and Papua New Guinea in Australia. So quite a large district. And as far as our use of Meetup goes, we've had individual clubs trialling it and a few sort of linked accounts, so groups of clubs that have gotten together and put their own account together. However, yes, there's nothing on a district level, and certainly I'm attempting this year to start rolling it out via the divisions, I think. So we'll see how that project goes, and happy to be on board.
Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to see if I can share my screen here.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Lovely.
All right, so this is our setup here. You'll notice firstly the name on the account because it starts with hey and then it says the name on the account is Join Toastmasters. So from our perspective, I'll just show you a map so that this makes sense to you. From our perspective, what happened last year was we had a reformation of what was District 70 became District 70 and District 90, and we drew a line pretty much down here, okay, so straight through the middle of Sydney. Now, and this is the borderline here is the Harbour Bridge. Now, that's all very well and good for Toastmasters who know what districts are, or at least a number of Toastmasters know what districts are. We know not every member gets that. But for visitors, drawing artificial lines to distinguish districts to help them find clubs means absolutely zilch to them, and we didn't want this reformation to negatively impact the visitor's ability to find our clubs. And so what happened was we sort of thought, well, instead of having a separate website instead of having a district website for visitors, we've built a website and a brand called Join Toastmasters. So visitors are encouraged to come to this website, which just deals with how to find clubs, short courses in public speaking, etc. And all of the social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that connect to this and Meetup are branded as Join Toastmasters, which is, of course, a nice call to action. So that's where it sits relative to the other things that we're doing, and that's why our account is called Join Toastmasters. So does that make sense so far? Any questions?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes great sense.
So then the next thing that we wanted to do, again, if you're going to use Meetup at an enterprise level, it's also about looking at where the locations are geographically for visitors. It tends to work better the more local it gets. Now, what we've started with is we've set up, so your first account with Meetup, your basic account, I'm pretty sure you can set up from memory one group. And you have limits on the number, or it might be 3 groups, but there's a limit of 50 people and you can't have too many organisers. We've gone the next one up, which is unlimited, and that gives us 3 groups with unlimited event organisers. And I'll show you why we've done that. The long-term plan is to actually get enough clubs using this that we can justify the expenditure to go to Meetup Pro. But the financial jump is fairly steep from the unlimited style of account to Meetup Pro. So at the moment, this is costing us about, I think, $220 Australian per year, and that's obviously split between 2 districts, which is just, it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But once you go to Meetup Pro, and that gives you unlimited everything, for each group that you pay for, I think it's $15 a month, and so over the same period you can see how it stacks up quite a lot. So what we're trying to do is get at least 30 clubs in each of these Meetup groups, and that way we can start to justify, well, instead of having Sydney, we'll have one that's the northern part of Sydney and one that's the southern part of Sydney, but we want to get critical mass of clubs in these. Is this all making sense so far?
Yeah, definitely.
So how many clubs might you have in Sydney?
So in Sydney, the number of clubs that we actually have is about 200. But if you look at the actual Meetup group, we've got 378 members, but I think we've got about 15 or 16 clubs using this so far. And
out of 200 clubs in Sydney?
Yeah, about 200 clubs, but only about 15 clubs using this Meetup account so far.
Now, I guess a question, what is the breakdown in Sydney between corporate and community clubs? Because I can imagine a lot of the corporate clubs probably wouldn't have quite as much a need for this as the community clubs, for instance.
Yeah, I think from memory we have about 50 or 60 corporates, but that's just off the top of my head. I need Mike Kano or someone here to answer that question for you. So obviously with those clubs, you're right, corporates, Meetup, it's not really suitable for them. Same with some of the advanced clubs, because advanced clubs tend to draw their membership primarily from existing Toastmasters, so they're a separate case again, but there's only, I think, 6 advanced clubs. So there's at least 100 clubs in Sydney who could make use of this.
So Kathleen?
Yeah.
Kathleen?
Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Of course you can, Kyle.
If I understand what you're doing, you've set up 3 groups, one for each geography, and then within a group you have different organizers, and each organizer is a club. Is that correct?
That's right. So the way we have structured this so that district pays for it and district administers the accounts, but it is the responsibility of the club to go and post their meetings in there. Because what happens when Yum Chat posts their meetings, so they're a club who's posted here, when they post their meetings and they post it as a recurring event, That way they're managing those, they're getting the emails about it, and so we're not flooding the district team with all of these people wanting responses, etc., that are to do with Yum Chat Toastmasters Club. For that reason, we get clubs to sign up as their club name. So you can see it says here, hosted by Yum Chat Toastmasters Club. So we don't get people to sign up as Kathleen O'Rourke, we get them to sign up as, you know, Trainers by Design Toastmasters Club, or whatever their club name is. Yeah?
So is there an issue here with the question I've been raised by others is combing funds, that we're doing something at the district level that the clubs could potentially pay for themselves if they were to set up their own meetup group?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question? The microphone cut out a little bit.
Is there a potential here for being accused of commingling funds? You know, using district funds to benefit clubs, whereas clubs could be starting their own meetup groups?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's potentially an argument to be made for something like that. But on the other hand, when you have everyone in together like this, you're promoting more of the Toastmasters brand, and you're giving members of this group options to find a lot of different clubs, not just one or two. So you're making the user experience for the visitors who this is targeted for, I think, a lot more effective. And you can see that we've got, I mean, it says 378. There's about 50 Toastmasters in this group. So we've got over 300 visitors in this group. So as soon as a club advertises in this group, this meetup group, they've got a lot better chance of actually getting a visitor through the door. The flip side to that is when we get up to 30, 40 clubs and people are getting a lot of emails, that's when we want to start to reduce it back down to geographic areas. So, I mean, there's arguments to be made both ways. It depends on what the culture is in your district. There's not a lot of technical expertise, especially specialty technical expertise in our districts at the moment around social media, etc. And so for our districts, it made a lot of sense to actually pool that knowledge and support the clubs to use an existing structure rather than get them to administer their own accounts.
It's also more cost effective as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, otherwise you've got clubs paying, you know, $220 a year to manage something like this per club, or you just pay that at district level.
Okay, so what I heard in District 42, and that's what we're talking about tonight, is the possibility of them paying for the first 6 months while we trial this, and then if clubs want to continue using it, it would be available to 3 clubs within the area, that they would each have to contribute about $20 a club for the remainder of the year. Is that how you guys trialed it, or did you have another way of trialing it?
Well, we just trialled it as the district paying for it. And we've just made it open to any Toastmasters club in Sydney is free to use this, or for the Canberra account, any Toastmasters club in Canberra, any Toastmasters club in Newcastle. And the cost is something that we're considering for down the track, whether or not clubs pay a co-contribution, especially when we get to Meetup Pro, where it is more money. So we're still on the fence, I think, about that as to how that works.
Thank you. Could you describe again how you're paying for it, what your kind of account is called?
It's the unlimited account. So if I look at Meetup, or pricing actually is probably better. There's a basic account, a next one up, basically,
That's
which is
unlimited, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're on an unlimited, and then you can go to Meetup Pro. So here we go. We've got basic starts at $10 US a month, and so you can have 50 members and 4 organisers. And this is the thing is there are some clubs in areas who have started on a basic account, and some of those clubs are already starting to migrate into join Toastmasters because they've run out of members because you can't have more than 50 people. The Unlimited is the account that we're using at the moment. To get Meetup Pro in our area of the world, you actually have to contact Meetup. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but it's available and they'll release it out to you. but you have to get in touch with the Meetup people.
Uh-huh.
So you just contact the organisation and let them know you're interested in that kind of account. But instead of $15 a month for all of your groups and members, etc., you can have up to 3 groups. It becomes $15 per month per group. So it's
That's
at least
that's for Pro?
Pro, yeah. And again, the pricing may be slightly different because, as you can see in Australia, when I went to get the pricing, it directs me to pricing based on my area of the world. So Meetup is a US company and you guys are in the United States, so you might be getting a better deal than we are. I don't know.
Kathleen, what kind of results are you seeing?
Well, it's been very slow at the moment. We get mixed feedback from people who are using this. I've heard of one club has joined up 2 members from this very, very quickly. And I can't remember if that was Newcastle or Canberra, but someone was telling me, they're like, oh, we used it and it was great, and we got two people through the door and they both joined up. And I mean, it's hard for me to track the effectiveness of this at the moment because I haven't been that systematic about it yet. My focus has actually been on training clubs how to use that, because when we first started with this, I put out some basic instructions, sent it out, and I think I got 1 club doing it. There was just no traction to be had. And so we put out on our District 70 website. I don't have control over what's happening in District 90, so I don't know exactly what they've done. Oh, why have you taken me to the AC website? Sorry. I want to go here. So we put this out on a District 70 website, and this is the instructions for Meetup, the Toastmasters clubs, on how to use it. Because what I found is I put out instructions like this, step by step, how to do it, and no one was doing it. And when I went round and asked some clubs, it turned out that was just not enough for them, and they just didn't have the technical expertise or understanding. So I spent a lot of time actually building up 3 layers worth of instructions. So there's screenshot instructions on how to set up an account, how to go through all of that process, and then how to get into the actual group, etc. And then I also put together videos for clubs on how to do this, because that was where I was finding the breakdown in communication was. And now that we're starting to get some more clubs using it, we can start to look at actually tracking the effectiveness of it. But I find we've been using Meetup for over a year in my home club of Trainers by Design, and we get probably 1 visitor every second meeting out of it, and we have had 2 members out of it in that time. So it is a tool. There are people looking there, but Meetup can be a flaky audience. So people tend to hover in the background for a long time before they actually go and join something. But it depends. It depends on the area and the group.
I was at the Eastwood demonstration meeting, and I thought there were about 6 people there that had heard about the Eastwood demo meeting from Meetup and had shown up. So
Yeah.
from my perspective, that was excellent.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and you can see people can RSVP, and now this upcoming meeting for Yum Chat Toastmasters, sorry, I just want to get off that, there are, now Sam's a Toastmaster, but I don't believe Isabel's a member of that group, neither's Richard, and they've both RSVP'd that they're going to go along today to this meeting. So, and Eastwood, you can see you've got quite a few RSVPs on Eastwood for their meeting today. So, and the thing about Meetup as well is when you list your club in this group, every member of this group gets an email saying a new Meetup has been announced. It's an invitation to visit that club, and then at the beginning of this week, members of this group get an email saying, meetups this week, we've got Yum Chat, we've got Eastwood, so we're giving them a lot of options of different clubs that they can visit, And one of the visitors who I spoke to said that they had the impression that Toastmasters was this really vibrant place with lots of things happening, because there were just so many emails they were getting about upcoming meetings that they felt that there was a lot going on, and it was one of the things that attracted them, which I think is something that you get from doing it this way that you don't necessarily get from clubs doing it on their own. But again, that depends on how active those club groups are, because like any form of social media, if people aren't engaged with it and coming in and having a look, then and having conversations in here. See, we're not actually implementing any of these other things yet. So we're not using photos, we're not having discussions in here because we're not there yet. But there's a lot of scope to grow this once we get the momentum going.
So this is Janice here. I'm starting a new club in Toronto, and am marketing it only through Meetup and Eventbrite. And we are signing up a new member every week as a result of Meetup.
Yeah.
So I think to us, and you're right, you do get a lot of flaky people. We've got a huge following, and very few of them have come out to the meetings, but the ones who do come are joining.
Yeah.
So I think I'm trying to get the word out to our clubs to take it out. I'm not sure if you're aware that if you start to fill out an application to start a Meetup group as a club, and then you close it down before you actually get to the payment part, they will send you an email in a day or two inviting you to finish your application for a Meetup group at 50% off the price.
For the
Yes,
first
I've
month.
heard that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the first month?
I've never actually done it because I don't know how long the time period is. When we started our group, we got a 50% off deal for 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's 6
Oh.
months. I've heard that from a Toastmaster up in 69 as well. So
I tried to start one up last week, and they were bugging me, and they were only going to give me 50% off for 1 month.
Oh, was it?
okay,
But that's
good to
Canada.
know.
Well, I mean, that's good to know as well. But this way, I mean, setting it up as what is essentially using it as enterprise software, you don't, I mean, the clubs aren't paying for anything. They just have to set up their account. And the way that it works is I get them to, once they've set up their account, joined the group, I get them to message me through the Meetup function, and that way they know how to use the messaging function as well. So it's a little bit sneaky. So I've left 2 here to do so that I can see how it works. I get them to tell me that they've joined and that they want to become event organisers. So here's Newcastle Uni. So the way that I do this is I know they're going to be in the Newcastle group. So I just go into that group and go to members. And then I've just got to find them. Usually they're at the top of the page, but not always. There we go. And so you've got this little area here called admin tools. You can just drop down and manage roles. You can also do it if you see them in that previous list. Just click on the ellipsis and go manage roles. And then what I make them is an event organizer. So you can see there's different layers here, but obviously because we're administering the account, we don't want to give clubs masses of control over what they can and can't do on our whole account. So as an event organizer, they can set up their own events in here and edit them and delete them and change them and have contact with visitors, etc. But they don't have a lot of other control over what's happening in the rest of Meetup. So then I submit that, and I have an opportunity to also message them and say, you know, I've made you an event organizer. It says, do you want to notify Newcastle Uni? I always click yes, and that way they get very official looking email from Meetup that says, hi, I've made you an event organizer for this group. Then I just hit send, and it's as simple as that. And now for Newcastle Uni, instead of on the front page saying suggest a new meetup, it will now say for them what it says for me, schedule a new meetup, and they can go in and schedule that. And that's as simple as it is. So, and then, yeah.
You coordinate this for your district. So I'm getting that sense that if we were to adopt this, we should have like a Meetup coordinator for the district who manages Meetup for the district.
Yeah, and that way you've got one, well, I'd suggest 2 or 3 people. That's what I'm working on at the moment, is getting another couple of people who can do this. But it's just every couple of days you just hop in, and if people want access Toastmasters clubs, you give it to them. And then we also get visitor inquiries through here. So some of these are active visitor inquiries that I'm still following up, who's where everyone is. Some of them are Toastmasters clubs that are still a little bit confused about the process. But you do get people saying, hey, I'd like to find a club through here. So it's another inquiry form as well, if you think about it that way. And visitors will use it for that. So the messages are something that you need to keep an eye on because you'll get people asking you for clubs.
Excellent. A question, Kathleen. So District 69 is fairly spread out, as you can imagine. So we basically have Brisbane, and then we have a lot of smaller regional centres. So I notice you've set up this particular group around Canberra, Newcastle, and Sydney. What would you suggest for, I guess, a more spread out, a more diverse district?
Well, I think once you get to, it depends on what your sort of critical mass is in each area. See, the thing is, I've done some sort of research on not Toastmasters, but other types of groups that use Meetup, and especially in regional areas, because I was curious to see what happens once you get out of major centres. And if anything, your return on investment is actually better in a rural area, because I think maybe people have a better sense of community when there's a smaller group of people. So if we have 5 clubs around sort of Wagga Wagga and Junee, we're probably going to get a much better response for those 5 clubs, even though it's only 5 clubs in a group, than we are if, than we're necessarily going to get in Sydney. So I think that's where Meetup Pro really comes into its own. But again, you've got to have, for me, I'm just not willing to take that step of organising our district to pay that much money or potentially split the cost or anything until we've got clubs ready to use it. And so that's why we set it up in such a way that, well, let's just wait until we've got enough clubs who can use this and understand it and help each other, so that as new clubs come on board, we've got that community of practice and that support. So that's why we did it that way. But I think, to be honest, once you get into more of a local type area, it tends to do better. Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's probably fewer, less competition as well, I think, between the various clubs for people to show up.
Exactly, and that's why we're looking at taking this, again, once it gets big enough, it won't just be Canberra, it'll go much more specific. So we'll have in Sydney, we'll have Southern Sydney, so that's Sutherland Shire and Wollongong. We'll get that kind of specificity, and so we'll just shift people from this group into those groups, and then they're speaking more just to the people in their local area who, let's face it, are more likely to visit anyway.
Correct. Excellent.
This is Linda. I have a question regarding planning of year-over-year support at the club level. Is this a VP Ed responsibility or someone in the club who volunteers to become the organizer? And what are the plans for replacing those people when they leave or change clubs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
So what I do suggest to clubs at the moment is I suggest this should be a VPPR responsibility in the club. But it's up to each club to arrange who's going to do it. I know some clubs are using their secretary or their sergeant at arms, so people who aren't necessarily doing masses of work, and so they have the capacity to take this on. The thing that I do push pretty hard with clubs is that you're setting up an account. That account should be linked to an email address that several people have access to in the club, or you have a plan to hand over that email address, because when you set up a Toastmasters Club account, so this is the Toastmasters Club in Canberra, that account, that profile is linked to a particular email address. So they need to make sure that other people can actually, so if it's the VPPR in this club who set this up, which actually from memory I think this one is, he needs to make sure that he passes that email address and that information over to the next group. And this is what I'm saying, it's as much of a training and education exercise as it is anything else, because clubs, in my experience, tend not to have the understanding of how to manage
business continuity.
Well, business continuity and also just the long-term management in the club, because I see the same thing on a website level where clubs have websites and no one has access to it anymore and everyone's forgotten who used to use it.
Yep.
So it doesn't just happen at social media level, and even that for some clubs is a bit like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. But it's something that should be covered in the training. Now, even though we have all of these videos and screenshots and everything set up, one of the things that I am asking for is a short training segment of about 15 to 20 minutes on Meetup at the club leadership training second round this year. So for the 2016-2017 year. Where we've got a little bit more room to manoeuvre, because I'm just finding even now clubs just don't even understand what Meetup is. And so then trying to explain to them that you've got this group that you can use and you don't have to pay for it and it's all set up and you just have a couple of steps you have to go through, it's just a huge leap for a lot of Toastmasters, especially in community clubs.
Kathleen, quick question.
Yeah.
If what I heard you say a few minutes ago is true, it differs from a comment I got from somebody at TI. I was discussing Meetup with Rex Humphrey at TI, and they have no data on whether or not Meetup has been successful or not. But his comment was that he thought it would be more successful, more useful in the densely packed urban areas than in the more spread out rural areas. And I think I heard you say it's the other way around.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what Meetup, if you look at Meetup and the platform itself, it's really about bringing people together and it's about fostering that sense of community. So that as a social media platform is what it's aiming for. Now it has the potential to be very effective in capital cities just as much as in rural areas, but you need to keep that sense of local community. And so having something that is, I mean, I can speak to Sydney better than I can speak to Canberra. Having something that's the whole of Sydney doesn't foster much of a local community feel, whereas when we go to Meetup Pro eventually and we have something that is the northern beaches of Sydney, well, that makes people in the northern beaches who are looking for a Toastmasters club, and there's about 15 in that area, not area in the Toastmasters sense, geographic area, it makes those people feel like it's their local area, and so it's about fostering that sense of community. It can be equally effective, but as soon as you get out into more of a regional area, people already know what their local community is, and those boundaries can be potentially harder to draw in a capital city. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
No,
yeah,
you're
that
making
makes sense.
Yeah, it's about creating the localness, even if you've got a city as your group, and so that's why I don't want to keep with having 43 upcoming meetups and people getting bombarded with emails forever. Once I have enough clubs on this will become Northern Beaches of Sydney, it'll become Sutherland Shire, it'll become CBD, and so it'll be much more specific in that sense. But I'm trying to hedge my bets financially from a training perspective.
Question, Mark here.
Yeah.
How much personality do you suggest clubs inject into their meetings, for instance? Well, like their meeting listings. So, like, would district want all the clubs to be fairly standard in terms of how they list on Meetup, or is it a case of inject a bit of what makes you different?
Look, absolutely. I do not recommend standardizing because every club is different. I think I can. No, I don't want to do that. I might just edit Yum Chat without editing all of them. So when we go in to edit an actual Meetup account, one of the things that a Meetup listing, I should say, one of the things you'll notice is this is a rich text area potentially. So I mean, you've got bold, underline, bullet points, but you've also got hyperlinks, so you can be linking back to your club website, etc. You've got insert images, so you can actually put in images of your meeting through here as well, and you've got videos. Now, no one's actually using this functionality at the moment in our district. I've been telling some of the clubs about it, and I've got one club that's very excited to get some photos and video into here. But I've inserted in my Trainers by Design meetup, I've inserted infographics, videos, all sorts of stuff, and you get a better response, like with any form of social media. But no one's injecting that kind of personality into their meetup listings at the moment, and I'm sure they will do better when they do, because you want to make yourself as attractive as possible. And I want, as soon as we start to get that, I think we'll also start to get, what I want competition, like friendly competition between clubs, like mine could be better than yours sort of thing, because that's when I think it'll really start to take off. Is like, oh, you did a video, oh, we could do a video, we could do that. Let's do a video, guys. So that's what I really want to get happening, and I strongly encourage clubs to put as much of themselves into this as possible, because you get an email saying YumChat Toastmasters is meeting at Eastwood Toastmasters, and aside from location information, there's your opportunity to actually promote your club against all of these other potential clubs as well. So yeah, I don't recommend standardizing. Any other burning questions?
No, I think that's been fairly well explained actually. So.
Is it okay if I connect your name to our new quality program director that's incoming?
Yeah, that's fine. Not a problem.
Would love to do that.
All of the videos, anything that you guys want to use. We're also developing some strategy and procedures and guidelines to go with all of our social media presence. And so anything that you want to use from ours, just go ahead and use it. Knock yourselves out. You don't have to
Thank you. Lots.
Videos or anything again. So feel free to take all of those, and I'll send you the links after this. Probably not till tomorrow, but I'll get them to you as soon as I can. I mean, the main thing is you need at least a couple of administrators. You need to consider, how are we going to train clubs to use this? How do we want to set it up in a way that's going to work for our district and our cultural setup now and into the future? And so at the moment, we haven't got, for example, as much of a local feel as I would like, but that's a trade-off, so that long term we can, when we go to Meetup Pro and we do build more of that, we've set things up in such a way that that will work, which is the other reason that we have quirks like getting clubs to sign up as their club rather than individuals, because that way it looks good for visitors rather than saying, oh, Bobby's hosting this or anything like that. It says the actual club. So it's just worth thinking through those different aspects.
Well, as a visitor to Sydney, I just got back to Calgary a week ago. One of the opportunities I had was to go and visit a number of clubs and district events. And what I found was having this in addition to Find a Club was hugely beneficial, especially because you're two districts. So I can definitely see why you had to go this route, being two districts within the same metropolitan center. But I found it very, very useful. So I was able to connect with people and go to the demonstration meeting and get follow-up messages from them, encourage me to go back to several meetings. So I found it really friendly.
Yeah, I mean, Meetup, the scope in Meetup is huge. We're very small scale still at this stage, as you can see. But I think also be prepared for that it might take a little bit of time to get that momentum going. Once in my experience with these kinds of things, once you get momentum, once you get enough people on it, it just tends to run itself pretty much, and then you're dealing with training clubs in the more advanced things like knowing to send someone a message saying it was good to see you at a meeting, which is one of the things that Meetup lets you do, knowing how to ask questions. There's so many possibilities in the way that Meetup is set up, the social connection, that are just not utilised yet here, but it's all there, and when we get there, it's going to be awesome once we actually get to that point. But be prepared to train your clubs.
Mm. That will be the challenge, I suspect.
Yeah.
That's all right. We've got a couple of clubs that have been using it already, so I think we'll tap that expertise and get them running workshops throughout the year.
Absolutely. Good idea. All right, everyone. Well, look, I'll wrap it up there and not take up any more of your time. Thanks for coming and being a part of this. I hope that it was beneficial to see one of the ways that Meetup can be set up and used at a district level, and why we've done it this way and how it's working for us. And I hope that that's going to be useful information for all of you as you go forth and use Meetup to get more visitors to Toastmasters. And hopefully more visitors.
Thank you. This was excellent.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kathleen, a lot.
Thank you. I'll see you all around. Bye.
All right.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.